Greetings, y'all, and welcome to Seek Things Above TV. I'm your host, Lou Ciccone. So the Paris 2024 Olympics opening ceremony was a hot mess in a lot of different ways, but the thing that has people talking the most is how they chose to use this opportunity where they could have talked about the historical and, wonderful things, cultural things about Paris and about France, and they took this opportunity to go ahead and openly mock Christianity. So we're going to get into that in a second, man. If y'all like content like this, y'all know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. But let's dive right into this, man, because this was a hot mess. So the thing that has people talking the most, man, is how they had this depiction of the Last Supper. Okay, so there's a picture here of the Last Supper. But if you look carefully here, what you'll notice is that this whole thing, if you did not see it, and I'm sure many people have seen the footage by now, but if you did not see it, man, it was all drag queens who are now replacing the depiction of Christ and his disciples in the picture. And so they chose to do this on, I guess, one of the largest stage, I would say the largest stage for sports in the world. They chose to do this, take this opportunity to tell you what they're all about, to tell you what essentially France is trying to put forth. And look, this was not a good look in any way, shape, or form. This is, you're in a place where there are athletes from different faith groups representing all the various countries. You have this is a worldwide event. And it is supposed to be something that is welcoming, something that is celebrating sports and how sports unifies people, all right? But you got instead this opportunity taken by the people who organized this in Paris, and I don't know what they were thinking, to go ahead and make these displays of just outright mockery of Christianity. And not only that, you have people who are not even Christians talking about why this was such a display of degeneracy. And that's what we saw. Because as we continue to go through these clips, man, you see how, so this is just the quick little zoom in of the shot that I was talking about right there. And notice that there is also a child on there. Okay, so you have a child on there. So we have a full on thing of just grooming going on here. And you also had people dancing, and it was just, again, children in the midst of all of this stuff, and they're just placed in there, okay? So then you had this issue of this guy, I don't even know what he's supposed to be, but it was just tasteless. It was just a tasteless display. It just seemed really disgusting, and I don't even know why they chose to do this. Honestly, it just seems horrible. Visually, it was not an appealing image, and it was a gross thing to be looking at. And then not only that, you had three people coming together, and it seems like they are about to have a threesome, and they close the door. Like, what does this level of sexual deviancy and this display have to do with the Olympics? It had nothing to do with the Olympics. It's like, if y'all want to do these things and y'all want to, live your life this way, do that. But this has nothing to do with the Olympics, man. It had absolutely nothing to do with the Olympics. Instead of taking cues from England, and people have been saying this, man, taking a cue from England in the 2012 Olympics, where you had the Queen parachuting down, and you had Daniel Craig, as James Bond, talking to the Queen, and it landing at the stadium and all this stuff. It was awesome. That was an awesome opening ceremony. And what did it do? It showed things that represent England. But this ceremony right here, all it had to do was with sexual deviancy and just this gross display of, we can just do whatever we want, and there is nothing that you can say about it. That's really what this whole thing was. And it was, man, lot to be said about this. I know y'all have strong feelings as well. This is the video of it. Obviously, we're not going to play it, but y'all can find these easily on X or on any platform being talked about. Now, I wanted to bring this up right here because you had this gentleman right here. His name is Bishop Robert Barron. Okay, so he's a Catholic bishop. Now, I don't agree with ecumenicalism or ecumenicism. I do not. I believe that salvation is by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. There's one mediator between God and Christ, God and man, the man Christ Jesus. I believe that. And so I don't believe in all that, but there's a lot of things that we can still agree with as Catholics and Protestants. And so I want to play what he had to say here, and let's just listen in real quick.
This is Bishop Barron. Just a few days ago, I was in Indianapolis for the marvelous celebration of the Eucharistic Congress, 50,000 Catholics coming together to worship the Lord and celebrate the real presence of Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. So I come from that experience, and I come home, and I love the Olympics, so I turn on the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. What do I see now? And it's in Paris, France, a city I love. I spent 3 years as a doctoral student there. What do I see but this gross mockery of the Last Supper? And I won't describe it any further. Just go online. It's gone viral. You can see it. But France felt evidently, as it's trying to put its best cultural foot forward, the right thing to do is to mock this very central moment in Christianity where Jesus, at his Last Supper, gives his body and blood in anticipation of the cross. And so it's presented, though, as this gross, sort of flippant mockery. France, which used to be called the eldest daughter of the church, Paris, that gave us Thomas Aquinas taught there, and Vincent de Paul was there, King Louis IX, St. Louis, France that sent Catholic missionaries all over the world. France, whose culture, and I mean the honoring of the individual and of human rights and of freedom, is grounded very much in Christianity, felt the right thing to do was to mock the Christian faith. A question I would pose, we all know the answer to it. Would they ever have dared mock Islam in a similar way? Would they ever have dreamed of mocking in this gross, public way, a scene from the Quran? As I say, we all know the answer to that. I think, folks, what's interesting here is this deeply secularist postmodern society knows who its enemy is. They're naming it, and we should believe them. They're telling us who they are. We should believe them. But furthermore, we Christians, we Catholics should not be sheepish. We should resist. We should make our voices heard.
Yeah, so man, I agree with him on so many points there on what he said. First of all, I mean, you are seeing who they claim that their enemy is, who they're aiming their weapons at. Okay, who are they aiming their weapons at? They're aiming their weapons at Christianity. We can see that very clearly. And why? Because Christianity stands against this kind of debauchery, but yet we see the effects of when nations turn away from Christian values, and what you have is this kind of stuff. You're left with this situation where you have nations that are going to depart from any standard of morality. That's what's going to happen. You see standards of morality start to dwindle. You see what is right being called, what we know inherently to be right being called wrong, and what we know to be wrong being called right and even celebrated. And this is what we see here. And the question of him saying that, would they do this to anything that would represent Islam? Like, yes, we already know the answer that would not happen. That would not happen. One, because people know about the retaliation that would likely come from something like that, and that Christianity is much more, in comparison, peaceful in the way that responses are made to things like this. And then the other thing is that we have to recognize that if this is a spiritual war, and we know that we're in a spiritual war, we know that we're in a spiritual war, and we know that as it says in 2 Corinthians 10, right? We know that it says, for though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh, For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ, being ready to punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete. Now, I bring this up because we know that this battle that we're facing is not one where we're dealing with an enemy that is a fleshly enemy. Okay? The enemy is not a fleshly enemy. Behind all of these things, there are spiritual forces. Spiritual forces, as it even says in Ephesians 6, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. So we're dealing with an enemy that is unseen. Now, if you're in a war, what do you think the enemy is going to do? They're not going to waste their resources on something that is not a threat. So you have to understand that Christianity stands as the lone bastion of truth against this kind of wickedness. And that is why it is repeatedly targeted over and over and over again. You know, you're not going to waste your resources on the enemy that's just not going to inflict damage upon you long time. The enemy that is not really in your way. You know what I'm saying? And I just have to say the enemy that is not a real enemy. Okay? Other religions are not real enemies. Look, we have to understand, as he said, man, like, we cannot be silent about these things. We cannot just sit back and be docile and just sort of say, oh, well, you know, here they go again. Like, this is the point where you need to take a stand on these things. We need to be firm on these things. We need to speak out against these things, voice our displeasure. And as I said, I do think that people are doing this on a large scale, and it's not just coming from the Christian community. If you go on social media right now, you'll see that there are people from various faiths, even there's Jewish people, there are atheists even talking out against this and saying, like, honestly, what does this have to do with the Olympics? Why would you choose to do this? And so a lot more could be said about this, man, but take your stance on these things, be firm in it, man, and, you know, stand firm in your faith in the face of foolishness like this. All right. So, man, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear from y'all. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And if then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. All right. God bless y'all, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.